Hello everyone, welcome back to RoyalT Empire Education. And for those who don't know me, my name is Tyrone. In the last video, we talked about 3 basic patterns that you can look at in the stock market. In the stock market, we see different prices listed there every minute. So how do we know if the price is overpriced or underpriced? For example, company A is selling their stocks at $200 per share. But how do we know the actual value of that company's stock? Today we're going to talk about what is an intrinsic value and how to calculate it, and also I'll give you some precautions before you decide to use it. What is an intrinsic value? An intrinsic value is a true color of a company. We know that there are some companies out there whose stock market price is overvalued. This is where an intrinsic value can be very helpful. This is where the intrinsic value can tell us whether the company is a good company to invest in or not. The intrinsic value is the estimation of a company's future earnings and dividend. The common strategy when you have this information is to buy the stock when it is undervalued, so whenever it goes back to its intrinsic price, you will make a profitable gain. But if the stock market price is overvalued, then wait for it to go back down. When I started to use the intrinsic value, I started to use it on different companies. The first company that I used it on was on Apple. I used Apple because their financials were filled with accurate numbers. After calculating intrinsic value of Apple, I came down to $127 per share. But in the stock market, the true price was higher than the intrinsic value. So I decided not to buy and wait it out. After a few months, I saw the stock price of Apple drop, and I was relieved that I did not put my money in for the long term. How do we calculate the intrinsic value? We calculate the intrinsic value by using the EPS TTM, also known as earnings per share trailing 12 months. And we also put growth rate, history of price, and the earning ratio. I know that was a lot, so I'll be creating a specific video diving into a company's financial. For now, I just want you to remember those keywords that I just listed, which is the earnings per share trailing 12 months, growth rate, history of price, and the earning ratio. I get this information mostly on morningstar.com or yahoofinance.com. And I will have a link below where you can put those numbers in, and it will calculate the intrinsic value for you. When I found out that I can calculate the intrinsic value, it changed the way that I traded in the stock market. This is one of the easiest but the necessary thing to do whenever you want to buy a lot of shares in a certain company. I made extra money because I knew the risk before I bought the shares of that company. I calculated about 20 intrinsic value of different companies, which led me to another factor that is very important, and it is the risk factor. RoyalT Empire Education will create a very specific video about the risk factor, so stay tuned. Precautions when you use the intrinsic value. When you know the intrinsic value, it can be very helpful but also dangerous at the same time. A lot of companies do not put their accurate number or not have enough numbers for you to fill out that sheet that I gave you in the link below. When you do not have the accurate numbers or missing numbers in the sheet, you will have an inaccurate price intrinsic value, which is very bad. Do not put all your trust in numbers. Having the intrinsic value can be very helpful in numbers, but this does not consider the economic shift. This means even if the stock market price is undervalued and it looks like it's gonna go up, an unknown disaster can affect it, making the economic shift and make it drop. For example, we all experienced the COVID-19. When COVID-19 hit, most of the businesses shut down and the stock market price started to drop drastically. A lot of people that were calculating the intrinsic value by itself would lose a lot of money because they would not see this coming. So be careful whenever you trade in the stock market using the intrinsic value. Today we looked at what is an intrinsic value and how to calculate it, and I also gave you some precautions before you use it. I think that the intrinsic value can be very helpful whenever you trade in the stock market. This is mainly recommended for investors because for investors, time is on your side. If you want me to help the young generation to learn more about stocks and about investing, hit that like and subscribe button. And if you have any questions, comment down below and I'll gladly answer them for you.